Well, we got interested in racing back in the early 50s with an old flathead Ford. We run down at a place down at Warren, Stateline Speedway, and they closed in 53, so we needed a place to run race cars, so we decided to build a track at Stateline Speedway.
Okay, where was Skyline at?
Skyline's right out of Sugar Grove in Sugar Grove Township.
Okay.
We was up there for 2 years, and Skyline run about a year and a half after that. And we built Stateline in 1956. July 21st is the first race. And we had five partners to start with, and we bought out Marv Thorpe after the first year. So there was 4 of us left, and we run the track since 54 through 84. I don't know, up at Skyline, this partner of mine at the time, Cliff Goins, owned this farm up there, and decided to build a racetrack because Warren had closed the year. So we decided to make a racetrack up in this field.
That was Dickie Bend, right?
No, yeah, we raced at Dickie Bend in 53, and then they closed.
What
But I remember this guy that run that straight 8 Buick, Emery Mann, which is the same guy that won the first race at Stateline. He was running a straight 8 Buick at the time. You could hear him coming.
Gotcha.
And he was shifting gears at the time. Skyline started out running modifieds in 54 and 55. In the middle of 55, Smithport started the late model division, and then we ended up going to Smithport and talking to some of them guys about coming to there and running at another night. At Skyline run 2 nights a week for the rest of that year, I believe.
Okay.
Actually, it was one night and one Sunday afternoon is what it was.
Modifieds one day and
Yeah,
late
models the next day.
Okay.
And there was interesting. We had a lot of different kinds of cars back in them days that run not only just Chevys and Fords, but there was Plymouths and Hudsons and Studebakers, and we even had a taxi cab there running at the time. It's kind of interesting to know that it's
Drive what you bring, huh?
yeah, and if you had a problem with a car, you needed a drive shaft or something, you'd just go out in the parking lot, and somebody owned a car out there, they'd let you use the drive shaft and put it back in after the race, and maybe a radiator or anything come right out of the parking lot. But Lloyd and Don went to Brooklyn to buy this land they found that belonged to 2 sisters. They moved to Brooklyn. There's 77 acres up there, and they asked him what they was going to do with it, and they assumed they was going to farm it because they said, well, he's going to put up fences and clear the land and stuff, so they assumed it was going to be a farm. Well, it turned out to be a racetrack with fences and clearing the land is what it turned out to be.
So was born Stateline Speedway.
Yeah. We had a sponsored NASCAR race in 1958, and a lot of the NASCAR guys we figured was going to be there, and a lot of them never showed up because I guess you had to call them up individually, which we didn't know. But anyway, we had to call up some of our local people to put on enough cars for the show. But there was a fellow, Lee Petty, that was running for points that year, was there, put on a good show with a 56 Oldsmobile, I believe he was running at the time.
That's Richard's dad.
Yes, and he's now passed away. But anyway, the fellow that won that race by the name of Shorty Rollins, won the race at Stateline, he went on the next following year in 59 and won the first 100-mile qualifying race at Daytona Beach, and haven't heard of him much since, but he's still in the books that way. Our rules were pretty strict. We even had them have the inner panels in the doors and the fenders and everything back when we first started, and kept it that way for a long time, where other tracks let them cut out the fenders and all that stuff. But we had to maintain the whole car back in those days, and I can't remember if they had any real tricks. They just good drivers and bad drivers, I think, at the time. I think the only thing that I remember, which a fellow by the name of Bobby Snars had in his car one year, which seemed to be good, was a triple disc clutch, which nobody'd even heard of back in the maybe 60s. And he won a lot of races with a triple disc clutch until everybody else caught on to that. And that is the only thing. It's the only thing I remember.
The biggest tear down that I can ever remember, and Leonard could probably tell you more about it, was the Busing car.
Oh yeah.
Straight away.
We only allowed open rear ends at the time, no locked rear ends or any limited slip rear ends. And there was, I guess you're supposed to put up $50 or $100 for a tear down. Well, the guys got together and got the money together to tear down this Julian Busing's car, which won the 100-lap feature, I believe, at the time. Well, then they tore the rear end down, and they took a while doing that. And by the time they got it tore down, there was nothing welded or nothing in it, and they figured it was a limited slip. And then they come up with the idea that it had cooled down enough. They figured the clearance is close enough that it'd lock up when it got warm. And this is a story I heard, but they found nothing in that. When we first started at Stateline, we didn't have the means to do our concession work, so the firemen from the area there, they was doing the concession work. I remember they was peeling raw potatoes, and they would, on Saturday mornings, they would peel 1 ton of raw potatoes. And
What year was this now?
56 and 57, I think, maybe 2 or 3 years. They peel 1 ton. Of course, when we get rained out, the pigs got a lot to eat.
Good point.
This particular area around the Jamestown Warren area here, where we are, was a real racing fan area back in the 50s, big time.
They're still all going, so your race is on. In the lead yet is Bud Finale in car number 98, leading the pace. 2 laps completed, 23 laps to go with Keith Warner in